Welcome to Broadway Corner with Ashley Ha, where you can hear your favorite performers talk about how they got started, their careers, and everything in between. Make sure to follow me on Instagram and Spotify at Broadway Corner with Ashley Ha, and on my main Broadway account at Broadway_Corner on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoy. Hi everyone, welcome back to Broadway Corner with Ashley Ha. I am so happy that you are here, and today we are here to talk about a very, very special show to me and to our guest. It is my personal favorite musical that I've ever done, and it's the 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee, as you can expect. And our special guest plays the overachieving sixth language speaking Marcy Park. It's Leana Rae Concepcion. Hi Leana, how are you?
I'm so great. How are you, Ashley?
I'm good. I mean, it's a Friday. I know you don't have a show till 7. So, chilling and relaxing and, getting ready to go into a great weekend, I hope. But to give some background about Leana is a first-generation Filipina-American actor and singer. Leana was born and raised in California, like myself, and relocated to New York to attend Pace University, where she graduated in 2019 with her BFA in musical theater. She was an original cast member of the Tony-winning revival of Merrily We Roll Along on Broadway, Off-Broadway, and appeared in the amazing film. Love it so much. It was great. And she's currently off-Broadway as Marcy Park in the 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee. A lot of words, as we know. And, so many great things like Merrily, we could obviously have a whole other podcast about Merrily, but you've just had such an incredible career so far, and so I'm really excited to talk about it. How are you just doing today, and how are you feeling?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. It's actually so funny. Last night was the first time I was out of my show over at Spelling Bee, because I attended Dan's opening of his new show, Every Brilliant Thing. So yeah, so it's funny that we're doing this today because I just saw him last night in his new play on Broadway. So yeah, so I'm doing great. I'm happy to be back at the show tonight, though. I really missed it. I was like, I was like so emo, honestly, all day because I was like, oh, I don't want to be out of this show. So, but it's great because Emily Rudolph, who is a swing in our show, got to make her Marcy debut last night, so that was really exciting.
Yes, I'm so happy for her. She looked great. And how was Every Brilliant Thing? Can you give us your kind of mini review? I know it's
Oh
a
my
great show,
gosh.
one person show, and involves everybody in it. So how was it?
Oh my gosh, it was amazing. Yeah, I got to see it for the first time in the rehearsal studio because for the people listening or watching, that is a one-man show, so it's just Dan on stage, but there is some audience participation. So in the rehearsal studio, he, invited a handful of people every day when he was doing run-throughs to get a feel for what that audience participation would be, which is not, dissimilar to Spelling Bee, because we,
Yeah.
as many people know, but if you are listening to this and you don't know anything about Spelling Bee, there are 4 audience guest spellers every single night. So that is fun, and is actually fun and great because he actually came to the Bee
Yes, he did.
pretty early on, yeah, as a guest speller, because he was just kind of like, this is actually great practice for me to just be like thrown on stage and have no idea what's going to happen. So it was actually really awesome for him to be at the Bee, getting to experience what he is now going to be doing like on Broadway 8 times a week. So yeah.
Yeah, no, and Ever Brilliant Thing is such a cool show. I keep watching all of the interviews and things about it, and so
Yeah.
that's really cool that you got to go in so early and be a part of that process. I love your guys' friendship.
Yeah, he's the
Yeah.
best. He's the best. And it's amazing. You or anyone listening to this has the opportunity to go see it. You guys absolutely should. It is a beautiful, beautiful night at the theater.
Yeah. Well, that's
Yeah.
beautiful. And before we get into the Bee, can we just talk about like your background and kind of where you grew up, where you went to school, and how you discovered theater?
Yeah, I mean, I have a pretty crazy introduction to the theater. So, I mean, my first introduction, I guess, to it was, so I grew up in a town called San Bernardino in California. So it's kind of like right in between LA and Palm Springs. And there is this summer theater in like an outdoor amphitheater called Junior University, and it was just like a thing that like everyone did. So it was very just like summer lovin' type of type of vibe. Like I didn't really know anything about theater, but I did it my first year, the summer between my 6th grade year and my 7th grade year of school. I auditioned for it. Again, I knew nothing about theater, so my audition song, so funny. I was literally just talking to this. I was talking about this yesterday, because the Pussycat Dolls are going back on tour. Um, and so my first audition song, again, I knew nothing about what theater was When I Grow Up by the Pussycat Dolls. I was a 6th grader being like, oh, when I grow up, I want to be famous. I want to be a star. It was so crazy. And somehow they hired me to do this little summer show. So that was my first introduction. But again, it was, it was very casual. It was just like I wanted to hang out with my friends and make new friends and do something with my summer, before starting middle school. But then in middle school and high school, I actually was in a like military program, at those schools. So I was a military kid. And that's actually what I thought I was going to be doing with my life. So, like, my dreams and aspirations were to go to West Point and graduate there, and then eventually, enter the military. I had dreams and aspirations of doing like intelligence, on the ground, ideally. But then my junior year, actually, we'll get back to that. So that's kind of where my life was heading.
Mhm.
Was to go into the military. And then my sophomore year of high school, I switched high schools because I was being bullied pretty relentlessly. And I was like, I don't want to deal with this. And by moving high schools, I had reconnected with a friend who I did junior university with. And she was like, hey, like, did you know that there was this new like dance conservatory that's opening in Redlands, which is like a neighboring town to San Bernardino? And I was like, no. She's like, you should come check it out. And I was like, I should definitely do that because that will make me look very well rounded on my West Point application. um, so I ended up dancing there for a year. And it was like pretty intense. It's a conservatory, so it would be like after school, and we would dance from like 2 until like 7 or 8 o'clock at night. And it was a boarding school for students. So like there were people that were flown to live in Redlands in like a communal house, and all they did was dance. Um, so it was amazing, and it was really awesome, and I loved the discipline of it. It reminded me a lot of military school. And then my junior year, we as a conservatory, um, partnered with this new program by David Green. He was one of the founding members at OSHA, which is a very famous performing arts high school in California. He created a new program in Palm Springs, called Musical Theater University. And that's really when I started to understand and see musical theater as like understand it as a concept of a career, if that makes sense. So yeah, so we would commute 3 times a week to Palm Springs to take musical theater classes. And it's very High School Musical-esque, where we were all required to audition for the fall musical, which was Hairspray. At this point, I kind of understood what musical theater was, so we all like sang from the show, and I was cast as Penny, which was a lot of fun. So that was like my first like real job. And the thing that made Musical Theater University amazing was the shows they would pick. The students would play the students, like the kid parts, and then they would fly Broadway talent from New York to play the adults. So we got the opportunity to like work with Broadway professionals in a high school, environment, which was unbelievable. And that's actually when I met Lindsay Mendez for the first time.
Oh my god.
We did like a gala performance of Lucky Stiff to like raise money for the program, and they flew her out. So it was so crazy, like, now moving forward of like, first day of rehearsals for Merrily Off-Broadway, I went up to Lindsay and I was like, you probably don't remember, but you came to Palm Springs for David Green and Lucky Stiff, and we did that together. And it was like such a crazy, crazy thing to have that like come full circle. But anyways, reverting back, the spring of my junior year, we did a chorus line, and I was cast as Deanna Morales. And when I talk about like my story and journey with musical theater, this is something I always talk about, but it was like our closing performance, and we had just finished What I Did for Love. And I just remember the silence in that theater that we were all there together experiencing what was happening. And then the applause broke out after what I did for love. And I just remember so vividly and clearly that I never want to not feel this again. And that's when
Mm.
I made the decision to pursue musical theater as a career, which, you know, I grew up in a place where people don't really like have the opportunities to get out. You know, San Bernardino is a rough place to grow up, and I was, you know, one of the lucky few that had the resources and ability and the drive to apply to musical theater school, which is very different than applying to West Point. Thank God for the internet because the amount of research I did just trying to prepare, like what in the world is a 32 bar cut, and what is the difference between, you know, contemporary musical theater versus golden age musical theater, and okay, I sing loud and I sing high, but what is that, and what is a soprano voice? Like all of these things, I didn't have any of these tools or resources, so I did everything I could, and I did all of those self tapes. What are they called these days? Pre-screens. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I did that
pre-screened. I got through all of my
too.
pre yeah, I got through all my pre-screens, thankfully. Me and my mom flew out to Chicago for Unifieds, and my mom is so used to the warmth that she didn't leave the hotel room because it was the blizzard of 2015 in Chicago that they hadn't had in so long. So I was just marching around in Chicago with a little girl and some dreams, going to all these auditions and dancing with all of these kids who have danced their whole life. Like it was honestly terrifying. But thankfully, I got into a lot of programs, which I was very, very surprised by. Um, and thankfully I got into Pace, and I then I went to like their accepted student weekend and absolutely fell in love. So yeah, I don't know. I think like the college process was interesting because I think it was really my first time having clarity, like getting into these programs. I think it encouraged me of like, okay, maybe this wasn't just a pipe dream. Maybe this like crazy change that I made in my life is more than just a gut instinct, and maybe I do have the chance and ability to potentially make this into a career. So that was like kind of my first like introduction to just like having some self-confidence, if that makes sense. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so
Yeah,
that's my journey. Yeah.
yeah. Oh gosh, that's a lot of different things, and I think I can relate to the going to Unifieds and being terrified next to
Yes.
all these people who are so talented, and you're just like, oh man, am I enough for this? But then obviously things work out, and you get it, and you get to go
Yeah.
and do the BFA thing.
Yeah, it's actually so funny. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, yeah, I went to Chicago Unifieds. That's where I did my initial PACE audition. And
Mhm.
I actually sang Not a Day Goes By in
Oh
that
my god.
audition, which is also so funny. Wow, I just thought about that. I sang Not a Day Goes By, but I sang it in the higher key. I sang it in the Bernadette key, but I was still belting
Mm-hmm.
it. So it was much higher than like what the key that we did on Broadway, which is so funny. But that is also another thing that I never actually put like two and two together of like, wow, that was also very full circle. Like that was the song I sang in my audition to get into Pace. And then
Wow.
I got to sing that on Broadway years
Yeah.
later, which is so crazy. Oh my gosh, I didn't even think about that. Wow.
Wow. Yeah, and for those of you who will be listening, Leanna did get to Understudy Beth on Broadway, which is incredible. And that was the first song I ever saw you sing because you did I forget what it's called, whatever that little understudies thing, that green room.
Oh yeah, yeah, at this performance. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, at this performance, that's what it's called. And so I got to see you do that because Sarah Kay was doing, something for Here Lies Love and all those things. So I remember that was the first time getting to see you sing and just being like, wow, I don't really know Merrily yet. But then later
Yeah.
on, becoming obsessed with it because it's all so beautiful. But yeah, like going into, I guess, the B of it all, like how did you get involved with Spelling Bee?
Oh my gosh. Well, that's also kind of a long story. Thank God
Yeah.
this is a podcast. Yeah. Also, if I'm like talking way too much, just cut me off.
You're
Um,
not worried. That's what this is for.
I had a really interesting. Um, I have an interesting story with spelling bee too, and it's so funny because I think like so much of what we do and this business is like how you decide to, like, your outlook on how you decide to look at things that have happened to you or things that don't happen for you. But interestingly enough, with spelling bee, so I didn't know spelling bee at all. And two of my best friends, when the Kennedy Center announced like their center stage season, spelling bee obviously was a part of it. And they texted me immediately and was like, "Hey, you need to go in for this." And I was like, "Okay." I was like, "I don't know what that, like, I don't know what it means because I don't know who Marcy Park is, but like, I trust you guys. Like, they're like the best theater people in the world, and my best friends. So I was like, I trust y'all. Y'all know what's best for me." So I like texted my agent, my manager immediately, and I was like, "Hey, I've been told that I need to be seen for Marcy Park." And they're like, "We're on it already." And I was like, "Ah, you guys are the best." So, they pitched me for it. But, the thing about center stage, and if there's one thing that you need to know about me, is I am very self-aware. I'm very self-aware about my standing in the industry, right? Like, I'm not a stunt cast, obviously. I'm still at the very, very beginning stages of my career. So, and center stage is, very famous, similar to this, to City Center, of like offers, and they're going to try and get the biggest names that they can, because that's kind of the point of those things, because it's a very fast rehearsal process. You want to sell those tickets. So, it was kind of a shot in the dark for us. And they did not show any interest at all. So I was like, all right, no worries. And then when the cast got announced, obviously it went to a good friend of mine, Anna Zolson, and she's remarkable.
Yeah,
So I was like,
so
hell yeah, good for
good.
her. But she had just finished doing Piazza, and then it was announced that she was going to be taking over for The Notebook on Broadway. So she had to pull out of Kennedy Center Spelling Bee. And this was around the time that I was in callbacks for a role on Broadway that I had been in callbacks for the last 6 years. And it is a role that I am still chasing and that I adore and love so much. And it's truly one of those roles that I'm like, I have to do this before I can't.
Mhm.
So I was in callbacks for that, and I was preparing. I had my final on Wednesday, and I was also deathly sick. So I was just so focused and putting all of my energy into like trying to squeak out the best work that I could for this callback. And that's when they came back to us and asked if I would be interested in self-taping for Marcy. And I declined it because I was like, I can't. I was like, this is a soprano role. I need to be living in soprano land. I cannot be belting right now. And I'm sick. I was like, I need to just focus on this. So I was like, we have to decline it. I can't. So I did that callback on Wednesday. And then I called my manager, like I always do after an audition, and just like talked to him about it. And then he called me back a couple minutes later and was like, "Hey, spelling bee team is really asking, like, will you please audition for this?" And I was like, "Okay." I was like, "This callback is done." I was like, "I cannot get it to you today because it's already midday Wednesday." I was like, "If they give me the night to learn it, I will tape it Thursday and we can submit it Thursday." And he was like, "That's fine. They'll do that." And I was like, "Great." And it was really interesting because, again, I didn't know spelling bee at all. So and I'm pretty good at learning stuff quickly and getting off book, because I will not audition for, like, I cannot self tape or go into a room if I'm not off book. So it's like really important to like my process to
Mhm.
to have everything like really in me. And it was
Yeah.
crazy when I was learning this material, it clicked like so fast. Like, I listened to it twice and I was like, "Oh, I know this already. That's weird."
Yeah.
So I actually ended up taping it that evening and we submitted it Thursday. And then Friday, we got the call that I had booked it. And then we started rehearsals on Monday. So it was a
Oh my god.
very, very fast turnaround. And I was like, I was scared shitless. Sorry, I hope it's okay that I'm going to be cussing on this
Oh, you're
thing.
so
But I
good.
was
Don't
scared
worry.
shitless because I think there's like a part of me that was like, there's a part of me, I think, that felt as if like they didn't want me at first. And now I was going to be in this space and I felt very insecure because I was going to be among people that I, adored and looked up to, and famous people, Tony nominated people. So it felt very scary to like walk into that room the first day to know that I wasn't the first choice. But again, it's what I said earlier of like reframing the outlook of like
Mhm.
having an understanding that of course they didn't want me the first time, because that's not what this is, right? Like they're trying to get big names for these things, and I'm not that, and I know that about myself. I'm very self-aware. But having an understanding that I still got the job. I still had to audition for the job. They still had to sign off on me. There is something about me that these people do want to work with, and learning that. And I think the Kennedy Center process was so interesting because I think I did work from a place of insecurity and fear. And I felt I didn't trust myself. I didn't trust the choices I was making. I didn't trust in the Marcy that I had created. I honestly felt horrible doing Marcy at the Kennedy Center because I didn't understand her yet. So then having the opportunity to have a year from Kennedy Center until we opened Off-Broadway was one of the greatest gifts, I think, for me, because I had a whole year to think about her and to try and understand her. And it was amazing going into rehearsals for Off-Broadway. Danny, on like the second day of rehearsal, we all had like sit downs with him to just like talk through the character. And I was like, "Hi, Danny," like blah 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 blah. And then we both sat down, and we both literally at the same time was like, "We did Marcy so wrong at the Kennedy Center." Like both of us said that
Oh,
at the same time, and it was just this like gorgeous moment of being like, we both haven't stopped thinking about Marcy. And he was like, "No, I literally haven't either." And then it just turned into, to me personally, like one of the greatest rehearsal processes ever. And I like had a newfound sense of self. And I like trusted myself and my instincts, and I like knew that I deserved to be there, and I was excited to be there. So having that time away from it and like working on that, because Danny has been like, Danny Medford, our director, has been like one of my greatest champions, because told we had a conversation about it, because I apologized to him. I was like, "Listen, like, thank you for having me back, because I was not at my best when we did it at the Kennedy Center." I was like, "So thank you for seeing something in me that I wasn't showing you at that time." And he was really the person that gave me the permission um that I deserved to be there. And there is a version of Marcy in me that he believed in. And that was like the greatest gift I think I've ever received. And it was really great to like have that realization, and to take the time to really start to believe that I do belong in a principal setting, because I made my Broadway debut as an ensemble member and as an understudy, which was amazing, and that was also one of the greatest gifts. But making that pivot, or taking that next step into working as a principal, is a very big step. And
mhm.
I think it has to come from having a belief in yourself that you are capable of doing that, and there is a reason why you got the job. So
Yeah, no,
that's my journey with spelling bee.
I love that. I love the reframing of mind. I think like in that kind of situation can happen with really anything of like, oh, somebody can't do it, we need someone else to be in that role. And it doesn't mean that you weren't just as talented or as capable. It just meant like it
Yeah.
wasn't the correct timing at first. And so I
Yeah.
really appreciate you saying that with just the reframing of the mind. And as actors, we kind of get in our heads about like all the things, and
Totally.
imposter syndrome galore. But I just really liked I appreciate you saying that and getting to hear that. I think it was really great. So thank you for sharing that, because I know that's something pretty vulnerable as well, of like admitting something to
Yeah,
yourself, but like being self-aware.
I think like I think that is like such a trap of being an actor and doing what we do, of like,
Hmm.
because I think like people don't want to admit that, right? Like people don't want to admit that they're not the stunt cast, or that they don't have as much notoriety as they believe that they do. And like I just don't really function from that place. Like I'm very self-aware. I'm like, it's like, it's just a ladder. It's a ladder that I'm still climbing, and I probably will never not be climbing. And but
Mhm.
I think the trap of it is you can be self-aware but also still honor the things that you've already done, because that's where
Yeah.
I tend to really do myself a lot of disservice. Is I have all of these ambitions and like what I believe I can do and what I believe I can offer and the roles that I believe that I can do so well in, um and but I always fall into that trap of being like, but they're not going to cast me because who am I? But then it's like I have to be reminded by like my team a lot. They're like, Leana, you've done stuff. Like you're not a
Yeah.
nobody. Like I was in the Broadway revival, of Merrily We Roll Along. And
Yes.
I often forget that. Like I often am like, oh, you're right. I did do that. And like that is not nothing. You know what I mean? But it's like sometimes you forget about the things that you have accomplished in your career because you're so focused on what it is that you still want. But you have to
Mm.
also honor and realize that like, I've had a career, which is like so weird because I doesn't feel like I have, if that makes sense. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, but it's like it's so easy, I think, to like belittle the things that you have done on your way to wanting the things that you still want to do. And
Mhm.
I forget to honor those things. Because yeah, I'm still climbing the ladder, but it's like I have done some really, really amazing things, and I often forget about those things. Um, in on the journey of wanting more, if that makes sense. But yeah, so
Yeah.
it's a stepping stone because it's like this was the next step, right? Like I was in the ensemble and I was an understudy on Broadway, and the next logical step would then to be a principal in New York City, and I get to do that now, um, which is a big step. And sometimes it doesn't feel like that, but it is, and I have to
Mm.
remind myself of
Mhm.
that. So yeah,
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, I think I can relate to that as well. Like even in auditioning for Marcy, like for me, as a teenager and in high school, like I never got to play any kind of principal role ever. And even going
same.
into college, like, I had still never done that. I was like, oh, okay. Because I was a little later to theater and just that wasn't my journey. And that was
Yeah,
okay. And like auditioning for Marcy, I didn't know spelling bee either. And so I was kind of like, okay, like I guess I'll go. They had like an audition day for this professional theater in Boston, like for my
yeah,
school, and they let us all go. And I was like, okay, if I get this, that's okay. But if not, like then I'll have my full winter break. That's literally what I said to myself.
yeah,
And went in there and did my thing and showed up as myself. And then it worked out and it turned out to be like the coolest thing ever. So I think I can totally
yes,
relate to what you feel of like, oh, I haven't gotten to do anything like this before. Why would they see me as this? Or like, how can I prove that to myself? But it's just having the faith and, and trying anyway, even if maybe you don't always feel like it's possible.
yeah,
So go us.
yeah.
As someone who is, at the very beginning of my career and still just training and trying to learn as much as I can, like, observing people like you is so cool because I'm like, oh, I really can also see myself in you. And like, I relate to the self awareness thing too. And just
Yeah.
knowing like, what's possible and what's out there. And also just knowing like, oh, to appreciate where you are in the current moment, I think is always important. So
Mhm.
thank you.
Yeah, of
And
course.
winning the show, what's your favorite song in the show? Because every single song is amazing. But what is your favorite?
I love doing Pandemonium.
um,
I really do. I think Pandemonium is the best. Yeah, I just love it because we get to really interact with like all of the audience guest spellers. And it's really fun, and I think like the audience has no idea what's about to happen. So there is like a part of Pandemonium that I'm just like there's a part of me that loves doing that every single night. And
mhm.
to just like get these random people who have no idea what they signed up for like up and dancing with us and moving around the stage and yeah. So I think it's probably Pandemonium is like my favorite part of the show. But obviously, like I guess my favorite song, I mean, it's the "I Love You" song. It's one of the greatest musical theater songs ever written, and I
Yeah.
can't believe that we get to listen to Matt Manuel and Lily Cooper and Jasmine Amy Rogers sing it every single night.
Oh my gosh, it's such a I mean, being there, I got to sit in the front. I like splurged for a ticket. I was like, I'm gonna go and enjoy this, and I was just like right in front of where they kind of land for the climax of the "I Love You" song, like
Mm,
And I was like, oh my god, what's happening? I
yeah.
was like, this is so cool, and yeah, Pandemonium is always a blast. I think, and I love just all the different aspects that you guys brought to it. It's so playful and like, yeah, the audience members are just never ready. They're never ready, and it's
Never.
great.
It's so great. And it's so great.
Yeah. Well, what is like your favorite moment that you had to watch from your chair? Because there is a lot of sitting down. And
Yeah.
the show moves a lot, but also like the first maybe once you sit down after the opening, it's like maybe like 10 or so minutes till you get back up again.
Yeah, it's a
um
lot of sitting. It's a lot of sitting and it's a lot of observing. But I
mhm.
think one of my favorite parts, there's a lot of things that I love about doing our show every night. But I think one of my favorite ones, which again has to do with reframing your outlook on things that happen to you, is probably when Leaf gets out of the show. I think that's
Mm.
a moment that quite possibly can be very overlooked because he's like everyone's favorite character. What's not to love about Leaf? And obviously like Justin Cooley doing this is just he's remarkable. And
Mhm.
watching him work through Leaf and finding his version of Leaf has been so amazing because like the version of Leaf that he did in rehearsal versus the version that he's doing every night now has changed so much, like everyone on stage. And it's like that idea of just like continuing to play and to finding your version of things and letting it inhabit you physically is just so cool. And especially with Leaf, it's such a physical character and what Justin has done with him. But I think him getting out of the show is one of my favorite parts because he has this moment where he hears the bell, which is not what he wants, and he is sad about it, but then he has this moment where he's like, I'm not gonna let it hurt me. I'm not gonna let it make me sad because I came into this bee thinking that I was so stupid and no one believed in me. And guess what? I got to final five. So I might not be the best speller, but I'm actually a pretty good speller and I love to spell now. And I think that journey and that moment is so amazing because it could be sad, right? You could, when things don't work out and when things don't go your way, you can allow yourself to wallow in the sorrow and in the what could have beens, or you can have an understanding that it might not have happened for you now, but it doesn't mean that's not going to happen for you at some point. So I think
Yeah.
like seeing that, it's one of my favorite things. And it's just musically so gorgeous. Like the
Yes.
orchestration in that song is unreal, and it just, yeah, it's one of my favorite moments to get to see every night, and to also watch the audience watch Leaf have that realization in real
Mm.
time. Yeah, so that's probably one of my favorite moments.
Yeah. I mean, and it also just comes out of nowhere because it's right after the
Yeah.
montage and it's like
yeah
appears and everyone's like, oh no.
right,
You're like, I
right.
didn't think happen. It's
Yeah.
a sweet little relief. But yeah, I do love that moment as well of just and the orchestrations too are so cool. And like for us at least, like I don't remember exactly what you guys did, but for us, like he would, go around to every single person and give everyone a hug.
Oh yeah,
Like that
yeah,
was
we
what we
yeah we do something similar.
Okay, yes, yeah. I was like, I couldn't quite remember, but it's just so funny also to see each person's reaction to getting that hug from Leaf as well. You're
Yeah.
like, what's happened? Or Barfay's like,
Yeah.
don't touch me. Like, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And just, it's another very sweet moment. Yeah, oh, I love like the journey that each character gets to go on. I think that it's so cool to watch everyone and see the journeys. And for you, what is your favorite word to spell as Marcy? Because for me, I like doing the little chimacom bit or doing obviously camouflages, whatever you want to say with it. But what's your
Yeah.
favorite?
I think it's honestly probably camouflage. Just because it's just my first moment where I can really just open up, and let loose and be out of the like what feels like a straitjacket for the whole show. So it's probably camouflage and having that moment and sharing that with the audience. because
Mhm.
I don't think they see it coming. So then when I think a lot of the times, I'm spelling camouflage, like the CAMOUFL, like A, like just trying to like think about what, Jesus just told me, and do I actually have the freedom of choice, and can I actually make a decision for myself? So that's like kind of what I'm thinking about a lot when I'm starting to spell camouflage, and I always take a moment right before saying J, where a lot of the times I think what happens is I start to smile, and a lot of the times, and that's when I know when the audience understands Marcy, is when I do smile a little bit. It gets a reaction from the audience, and that's when I know that they have an understanding of everything that I had been doing for the last hour and a half. And then when I
Mhm.
say J, there's always a reaction. And then I just get to like have such a good time saying the Z and the H and spelling it wrong and thanking Jesus for giving me the freedom to make a choice that I've never had the opportunity to make before. And so it's probably camouflage, because I'm just finally able to just like be Leana. Marcy
Mhm.
is so hard for me because I mean, like, I am very intense. I'm a very intense person, but I'd like to think I'm a very happy person. And not that Marcy isn't happy, but she's very different than me in a lot of ways. So it's really, the camouflage moment is one of my favorite parts of my show, because I can finally
Mhm.
just like be like, yeah. And yeah, so that's probably my favorite word to spell.
Yeah, no, for me, that is, yeah, that was also the first moment of me smiling in the entire show.
Yeah.
Because the way I took it was I took her as very like stone faced stoic Marcy.
Mm-hmm.
Which I like took, I think I took Deborah's to the extreme of just the opposite way. I was like, I'm never gonna smile, you're never gonna break me. That's just like how I somehow found her. But yeah, that moment with the J, everyone's like, oh my God, she's making a choice. She gets to be herself.
Yeah.
And then getting to have her little pandemonium reprise goodbye is such a little fun moment. And it's not on the album, which I hadn't even known until we started the show. And I was like, oh, I get to do this? Okay. And
Yeah.
I think also in the script, it literally says when she does the J and the Z and the H, like she's having more fun with it. And I was like, that's great. I was like,
Yeah.
thank you to all the writing of like just making it so easy for us to have such a great time and such a uniquely, you know, profound like moment for her, even though it seems kind of silly maybe at first, but it's
Yeah.
such a switch in her brain. And for you, like, do you have any audience member stories that you would like to share of anything either really fun or like a celebrity that you really loved having?
I mean, yeah, yeah. I mean, the show is different every night, which is really fun. Um, it's actually like my favorite part of the show. Because I think a lot of the times, like when actors are being interviewed or whatever, a lot of people tend to ask, especially obviously theater actors, is like, how do you keep your show fresh 8 times a week for
Mhm.
a long time? And I think that's one of the beauties of Spelling Bee, in that our show is different every single night for the first like 45 minutes of the show. So we have to stay fresh because we have no idea what's going to happen, which is really fun. But we've had amazing audience spellers. And but I think my favorite one, it's actually when Dan came to the show. Um, when Jesus comes in, there's like haze when during his
Mhm.
entrance, and it had been broken for a couple of shows, so we didn't have haze. And then the night that Dan was coming to the show, they're like, okay, we have haze again. We've tested it. It's working. So we're going to put it back into the show. We're like, finally, thank God. And then, but apparently it wasn't calibrated properly. So when Jesus came out and I did like the whole scene and I got out of the show, when I went backstage, I mean, it was like so hazy. Like I couldn't see anything. And I was like, what is going on? And the problem with New World stages, so like concert venues in New York, right? Um, so this is what I learned. Fire alarms obviously are there to detect smoke and to detect haze. Most venues in New York City, you can turn off the haze detector so that the fire alarms won't go off if it's detecting haze, only smoke. For some reason, which makes no sense to me, they do not have that turned off at New World stages. So
Uh-huh.
when the backstage area got flooded with haze, the fire alarm went off. And the problem with New World Stages is that it's not a Broadway house. So we have 5 or 6 different theaters. So when there is a fire alarm, you have to evacuate. And it's not just us, it's everyone. So every patron at every show, every cast, every crew in the building had to evacuate because of haze
Oh my
from our
god.
show, which was so crazy. So the show stopped, we evacuated, and then we finally got the all clear. We all shuffled back into the theater, and then we picked up right at the I Love You song, which,
Oh
like, I
dear.
was like, this is crazy. It's just crazy. But it was very funny. It was very funny. So yeah, so that's probably one of my favorite things that
Oh
has
my god.
happened at the theater. Yeah. It's all our fault.
Yeah,
It's
I
all
mean, like,
Jesus's fault, really.
oh, come on, Jesus. Come on. He had to have his moment. He had to have the grandness. It's
Right.
Jesus. What are you gonna do?
Hmm.
And if you had to play another speller, what speller would you want to play?
Oh my god, I would love to be Leaf. I would love to be Leaf. Absolutely.
Yeah, great choice. I feel like for me, I would either want to be like Logan or Barfay. Like, I would
Yeah,
love to be Barfay.
that's so
Because I
fun.
know, like, sometimes they do have, like, gender bend, the leaf, or like chip occasionally. But I'm like, I don't think
Hmm.
I've ever seen a female Barfay. So I'm like, that could be fun.
That could be fun. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like anyone can play any of these characters, which is always so great. And what does it mean to you to bring Marcy back to New York City after 20 years?
Man, I mean, it's definitely it was definitely scary. Like I think a lot of us felt that way of like, Spelling Bee is a very iconic show, and
Mm,
these are very iconic characters, and I think revivals are always hard because people coming into the show have an idea of what they are going to be watching, or they have expectations, and and I think it's interesting because in my opinion, like, you're reviving something for a reason, and I think some of these revivals that have happened over the last couple of years on Broadway have been so remarkable, like obviously Cat's Jellicle Ball that's coming in, and Masquerade that's currently running, and the Cabaret revival, obviously the Merrily revival. Like, I love a revival that is being revived for a reason and having a point of view and turning something on its head. And I really appreciate that. And I think the thing about Spelling Bee is these characters are so near and dear to so many people. So I think there is a part of it. It was a little scary because it's like, you know, I am not Deborah Craig. Our company are not the originals. Our director is not the originals. Unfortunately, we do not have Bill Finn with us. So there's only so many musical changes and lyric changes that we are allowed to make. Thankfully, we do have Rachel Sheinkin, who wrote the book, who was we were making edits up until opening night. So this version of Spelling Bee is not a carbon copy of what was on Broadway 20 years ago, and it shouldn't be, because that's not what a revival is for.
yeah.
But it definitely is interesting and scary to see how people feel about our production. Because I think people who are coming to Spelling Bee for the first time, having no idea what it is, I think come out loving our show and loving Spelling Bee, and more importantly, like loving Bill Finn's work, and loving Spelling Bee. And so being able to introduce it to a new generation of theater goers and theater lovers is an amazing thing. And I think something that's really cool of it not being a new musical and it being a revival is so many people over the last 20 years have been able to play these roles. So I think that's also
Mhm.
really fun to meet people at the stage door who have played these roles and connect with them in a way. Because you can't do that with a new musical, right? Like, you're being introduced to these characters for the first time, but in a revival, people know and love them. Um,
Mhm.
but so bringing Marcy back to New York, um, has been a really interesting thing for me, because so this is also my first time ever playing an Asian role. I've never played
Mm.
an Asian
Mhm.
role before. And this is my opinion about Marcy, and this is obviously like no shade to the original writers and the people that created her, but Marcy on paper is a stereotype, and I think over the last 20 years Asian stereotypes have been put on her that aren't on the page at all. For instance, people think that she has tiger parents, but that's actually not Marcy's life. That's actually Logan's life. Logan
Mm-hmm.
has the parents that are tiger parents, right? That's literally in the script, like Carl dad and Dan dad, the people that are
Yeah.
pushing her to do this and giving her anxiety and like only want anything but the best for her, right? That's actually not
Mm-hmm.
Marcy's character at all. And that's actually the thing that Danny and I have worked overtime, and it's something that I take very seriously every night in the show is making Marcy two-dimensional. I always get these confused. Yeah, two-dimensional, right? Yeah, a fully fledged person, not an Asian stereotype, right? So the thing that I've discovered about Marcy, which again, it's a big swing, and I hope that people understand it, and I hope that people see it. But it's very different than I think what Deborah did, being the original Marcy, in that like, and it's in the script. It's in 6 languages, and it's not something that I saw when we did it at the Kennedy Center, which is why I'm loving doing this time around, is I just have a better
Mm-hmm.
understanding of her. But it's that she's just one of those types of kids and one of those types of people that is just so good at everything without ever trying, right?
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't try to do these things. She is good
Mm-hmm.
at everything. Does she want to be doing any of it? No, she doesn't. But she doesn't know that, and she doesn't know that she can choose anything else. So she's literally at the B because it was on her calendar. And this is what she's
Yeah.
good at. So she's going to be going to the B, and she's probably going to go to nationals, and maybe she'll win this year, but like she doesn't care. She's just good at
Mm-hmm.
spelling. So it's like, yep, this is my Saturday appointment. This is what we're doing today. Um and that's really where I come from with Marcy. And I think like going back to how people are taking in our versions of these characters. Like a lot of people, like on Reddit, I love to read Reddit, which is probably a detriment more than anything, but I don't really care. A lot of people have a
Yeah.
lot to say about like my green hair. Or a lot of people love to talk about the costume choice of Marcy and Logan. And I'm like, well, if you watch our show and you have an understanding of it, you would actually understand that those choices were made very vigilantly and didn't come from a place of of nowhere. It's literally in the script. So a lot of people like to
Mm-hmm.
say like, oh well, Logan isn't wearing a suit. But she's supposed to be like the political character. And I was like, no, if you watch our show, you'll actually understand that none of her political things have changed. That her essence is still there. But the way that
Mm-hmm.
we are doing it and the way that our creative team and designers see her is that she's like Dan Dad and Carl Dad's little doll. And that is the version of Logan that we're doing. But she has her, trans rights pin. She
Yeah.
has like her rainbow socks and rainbow earrings, like still very much a political character. Um, and people love to say, like, why is Marcy in a suit? I'm like, well, do you know what parochial school is? Like, it's Catholic school. Catholic people or Catholic schools, a part of their uniform is sometimes to wear a sweater vest, a little uh checkered skirt and a blazer. Like, do you know what I mean? But it's like
Mm-hmm.
people don't want to think critically, they just want to see Leaf's cape. And I'm like, well, we're not doing this 20 years ago.
Yes.
Kids don't look like this anymore. If we're also being
Yeah.
honest, like kids don't look like this anymore. So anyways, about the green hair, it's something, it's a choice, a creative choice that I am absolutely obsessed with. And Theater Mania, actually, they reviewed our show and they hit it on the head. But it's this green, and you know what? It's like it makes me think of Alyssa Liu, because
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Alyssa Liu is one of the greatest ice skaters to ever exist in this world. And look at her, alt baddie with her hair. Like these are what young amazing young people typically like to use their physical features to show who they actually are. And that is what Marcy is doing. She has never had freedom to be who she is. So her way of like showing her colorful inner life and all of the things that she wants, even if she doesn't know it yet, is through her green hair. And that is like a very typical thing for you know, like highly smart individuals, right? It's like using your freedom of expressing yourself through things that people aren't necessarily going to understand, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I feel like I have that conversation about the green hair all the time because everyone's always like, why does she have green hair? I'm like, well, maybe if you like thought critically about who the character actually is and not the stereotypes that you're putting on her, you would understand what the green means. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But it makes me, it's something that like drives me absolutely nuts sometimes because I'm like, you know, it's like people are always like, Leaf doesn't have a cape and Chip isn't a Boy Scout and Logan's in a dress and Marcy's wearing a suit. I'm like, whatever. I actually can't have these conversations if you're not gonna like think critically about them.
Yeah,
I
no,
was like, if
that's
you want to
fair.
see the original show, then go to the Lincoln Center Library and watch it in the archives because that's not the version that we're doing. And I
Yeah.
love our version of the show because these
Yeah,
are
no,
real
and
kids.
yes. No, and it's again that thing of like anyone can be these roles and like these roles can also be anything at the same time, at least in my perspective of like, there have been so many different versions of each of these. And it's like, why can't this revival do something different? And like that's kind of a point of a revival as well, like you said, of just like, this can be something different or just going back to the basics instead of just I mean, I'm in a directing class right now and it's kind of talking about that, like seeing what the bones of these characters and what what this script is instead of just seeing like all of the subjective things that have kind of been put onto that. And so
Yeah.
I appreciate that. And like maybe, with the production that I got to do, like there were some things that were very true to the original, but like we also had different things as well that were, taken from different inspirations and did not have to be the original. And same thing with like getting to see the off-Broadway one. I was like, oh, this is so different than what we did, but I had an amazing time. I was
Yeah.
smiling the entire time watching the show and just getting to observe all these people and all these jokes and like just having a good time. It's like, why can't we just have a good time? Also, if you don't like it, you don't have to see it. You don't have to go
That's
if
true
you don't
too.
want to.
Yeah, I know. I know.
You
Yeah,
didn't
it's
see it and you
interesting.
like it. Okay.
Right. Yeah, yeah. And that's the thing too, is like I actually don't really care if people don't like our show. I'm like, I don't really care. 'Cause I like our show and I love doing our show and at the end of the day you're the one who bought the ticket. So
Yeah.
and a lot of people do like our show. Um um but yeah. It's very interesting. And I think a lot of I mean that's one of the best things I think about Danny is I mean, our version here off Broadway is very different than the Kennedy Center, and I think it's just because we had time to rehearse and time to understand these characters. And I think our biggest thing is that these are real people. We are not
Mhm.
caricatures of children. Um, it's funny because the stakes are so high, and it's funny because it's a spelling bee, right?
Yeah.
Like the audience should never be laughing at the kids. They should be laughing
Yeah.
with them and at the circumstances. And that is really, really the foundation of what our show is that the stakes are very real and very important and very high for these kids. People
Mhm.
want to win the bee, period. That's it.
Mhm.
And I think like that is funny. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Oh,
But
it's funny.
yeah,
Yeah. No, and like even for myself, like in our process of working on the show, like that was the thing that our director was telling us of like we have to raise the stakes. Like this needs to be the most important thing you've ever done in your life. Even on
yes.
just like, even in the opening, like you have to come straight out of the gate with like this is what I want and this is that's again like why Spelling Bee to me at least is like mostly a very perfect show to my in my head of just like
Yeah.
it's all set out for you. It's all set up for you so that, you can be whatever you want to be. And it makes it easy to embody these characters however you see fit. There's really no
Right.
one way to do it. So that's
Right.
why I think that's why I love it so much. It's just it's so versatile and it's so real and it
Yeah.
feels real.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's
And
great.
for you, there's a moment where, her Marcy's specifically Asian side does really come out, where you come out eating Cheetos with chopsticks. And I
Yeah.
wanted to talk about that with you because that is something I do in my normal life, of like eating really anything with chopsticks. But
Yeah.
just like, what's something unconventional that you like to eat with chopsticks?
I don't really like use chopsticks all that much, to be honest. I'm Filipino, so we eat with our hands a lot.
Sure. Oh
Yeah. So I actually like I just actually recently learned how to use chopsticks like a couple years
my
ago.
gosh, really? Wow.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, but I
And
love
that's
that
okay.
choice. That's like one of my favorite choices in the show. It actually came during tech because
Hmm.
there was a moment where like because that blocking has changed a lot, but there was a moment when all of the kids were there during the conversation between Olive and Barthay, and Logan was eating like a full carrot, and then I didn't have any snacks. Before I was actually like laying down on my back just like waiting for the bee to come back.
Mm.
And then Leaf was eating grapes. Or actually no, before he was eating oh, what are those called? Snap peas, like the snap pea chips.
Hmm.
And Danny during tech one day, like during one of our preview rehearsals, was like, why are all of these kids eating healthy? I was like, this is not real life. And he's like, does anyone have any ideas? And I like shot my hand up, and I remember it was literally, all the designers, all the creatives were there. We were in the middle of rehearsal. I go, Danny, I have an idea. And he's like, yes. And I was like, it's very Asian, but can I please eat hot Cheetos with chopsticks? And everyone just started laughing. And Danny was like, I love it. I love it. So that was actually my idea. And I love it. And it's like my favorite thing ever. Because that's like such an Asian thing, like especially just like hot Cheetos with chopsticks. And it was
Yeah.
perfect
It's like,
because like
I don't want to get my fingers dirty.
exactly. Well, I don't mind it. I actually like love licking my fingers after eating chips, but obviously for costumes, like that's an absolute no. Like red Cheeto dust, absolutely not. So that's why it actually like worked perfectly for all departments, because I wasn't going to get
Mhm.
red Cheeto dust all over my costumes. So, yeah, it's great.
Yeah, no, I just remember seeing it. And I was like, I'm like, I resonate with that really deeply. I'm
Thank
like,
you.
yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
me.
It's
That's
it happens so fast and it's such a small detail, but when people like talk to me about it at the stage door, it makes me really happy that people like saw it and appreciated it.
yeah, no, it's such a unique choice, and I absolutely love it.
I
And
love it.
you've talked about how incredible it is to have a predominantly POC cast, with the B, like BIPOC cast. So, what does representation mean to you in this show?
Yeah, I think I think that is the beauty of Spelling Bee. With the exception of Chip Tolentino, Marcy Park, and Mitch Mahoney, these characters can be played by anyone. But
Hmm.
obviously, like, and really when I'm talking about this, I'm really only talking about like professional theater, right? Because I'm not saying that, a high school in Ohio,
Yeah.
is Marcy going to be played by an Asian person? Like, probably not. So like when I talk about race in this show, I really am not including what's the word I'm looking for? Educational theater, because it's very different.
Yeah.
But
Hmm.
in professional productions, those three characters should be played by the proper race. And, you know, in our industry, even now, in my opinion, when things aren't specific, the default tends to be white. And
Hmm.
that is what happened with the original company. There were three people of color in it, and everyone else was being played by someone who was white. And it's not specific. And I think the
Hmm.
beauty of our show is that they cast the three roles that should be people of color very specifically and appropriately. And the creative team decided that the rest of the company, these were the best people for the job. And it happened to be that Jasmine is a black woman, and it happened to be that Lily Cooper is a black woman, and Logan is a white woman, but she's disabled. And Leaf Coney Bear is black as well. And these things are so important because it just shows that we can be the default. It
Yeah.
doesn't always have to be white. People of color don't always just have to be on stage in roles when it is specific. And I love that. And I love that people, it's so funny because I feel like people don't even realize it. And I even, when I made that TikTok, like, I was like, this is not me trying to be like, we need to be talking about this. Where are our roses? Why aren't people patting us on the back? That is not what I'm trying to say at all. And it's more of like,
Yeah.
this should just be the norm. Like, people of color should be, inhabiting roles that don't necessarily call for us. And that's been something
Hmm.
that's been so interesting with my career so far, that Marcy is the first Asian character that I have ever played. I have just inhabited roles in my Asian body. And like, I love that that has been my career so far, and I appreciate that that has been my career so far, and I love getting the opportunity to now play an Asian role and bring something to her, and be an important part of representation. um but yeah, like, I mean, it's just like, everyone's always talking about why representation is important, and it's like, I have nothing else to offer to that conversation, because it is the exact same sentiment as everyone else. It is incredibly important. It is
Yeah.
incredibly important to allow young people to see themselves represented in ways that they don't currently have the ability to have an understanding. Like, we don't get to see Black Whimsy, and we now get to, because Justin Cooley is playing Leaf Coney Bear. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like, our bodies should not just be on stage when it is talking about our trauma, or our history, or our pain. Like, we
Hmm.
deserve to inhabit roles and stories that are allowed to be universal, that are allowed to be about happiness, about love, about friendship. We are allowed those things. Do I think that we are there yet? Absolutely not. I mean, look at maybe Happy Ending. Like, you
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there, we do not have universality yet, and I think we are getting there. And I love the fact that I get to be in a building that is literally mostly people of color. Like,
Hmm.
it is an amazing experience. It is an amazing community to have that. um like, I would hate to be alienated. Do you know what I mean? And there are so many people who are currently working that literally are alienated in their workplaces, because they are the quota. They are, for lack of better words, they are the DEI hire, because Broadway shows
Hmm.
know that they can't have casts of all white people, even though it literally is still happening. But then they have one Black
Yeah.
person and are like, what are you doing? What?
Hmm.
Like, it will always blow my mind, and it will always be something that I will never be okay with. And
Yeah.
I just hope moving forward that we are seeing more and more of the default being less and less white. And like, I know
Yeah.
that's like a very aggressive thing to say, but it's just very important. It's so important. And it's really cool to like meet other Asian kids that come see the show and thank me for being here. And I'm just like, we shouldn't be thanking people anymore. You know what I mean? Like, I shouldn't,
Yeah.
like, an Asian person should not be coming up to me at the stage door being like, thank you so much for representing us. Like, I don't want that anymore. I don't want that to be our reality. Like, we
Hmm.
shouldn't be praising a show that has been on Broadway for almost 25 years for having one of their principal roles finally be a Black person. That is not something to
Yeah.
congratulate them on, in my
Yeah.
opinion. It's like, it's not. It's actually something that we should be like, huh, it took you that long. It took you so long, because you had to have a ginormous Hollywood film to finally get that casting to become a reality. Like, it's
Hmm.
so interesting. Oh my gosh. I mean, I'm probably never going to work again for that comment, but do you know what I mean? It's like, we should not be congratulating this. This is
Yeah.
something that we should be mortified by, in my opinion. Like, it's so fascinating. I cannot
Yeah.
wait. I cannot wait for the day when people of color are no longer being thanked for
Hmm.
representing. And like,
Yeah.
I don't want those words to be misconstrued. If do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? But
Yes, I
I really hope that sentiment makes sense, and I'm very apologetic if maybe I didn't word that properly, but I hope the sentiment makes sense and is clear of that. Like, I shouldn't have to make a TikTok video talking about how amazed I am by how diverse our company is. That should just be the norm. We
understand.
should be able to inhabit roles where it's not necessary, but we are there because we should be there, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
I hope it does. Oh my gosh, I really hope that
No,
sentiment.
it makes
I
a lot of sense. I think it's the thing of just allowing us to exist without having to explain ourselves. And I've had so many conversations about this in the
Yes.
few years of just being like, I want to be able to exist, not be questioned for it, not be like, oh, you're the first Asian this, because that's a lot of pressure. That's not something I necessarily ask for every time that I'm on a stage. Like, Marcy was great because it was like, this is, I'm doing this, this is going to be great. I know what this means for me personally, and I got to be in a role that allowed me to not have to be more than I had to be.
Mm-hmm.
And other people couldn't put their expectations on me because I was like, this is the character, this is exactly what I'm allowed to be right now. And it's just, yeah, what you said of like allowing us to exist and be the default in a way. um, Obviously that's going to take a long time, but just allowing us again to exist. And like even with the production that I did of Spelling Bee, along with me we had a South Asian Olive, which was so cool.
Oh,
Like
that's
thinking of the
amazing.
deepness of that, and she's a dear friend of mine, Maya, and thinking of like, oh, her mother could, it makes a lot of sense for her mother maybe to go back to India and like
Yeah.
trying to
Well, and I'm also like, and this is not meant to obviously, not to be another stereotype, right? But it's actually funny because this is not something that I said. This is something that I'm repeating that a South Asian actor who came to see the show said. And he's always like, it's just like really weird that there's like no South Asian kids in the spelling bee. I was like, because they win the spelling bee every year. Like, do you know what I mean? But it is like, it is fascinating. I'm like, yeah, you're right. Like, why don't we have a South Asian person in our show? And like, hopefully, like, if, God willing, we continue on and replacements get to come into the show, like, hopefully we are seeing that. Like, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, yeah, especially when it's non-specific. Like, of course, like, Marcy
yeah,
will stay Asian. She will stay Asian, but like, it doesn't mean that a South Asian talent can't come in and play Olive or play Logan and or play Barfay. Like, do you know what I mean? And it's just like the possibilities now, I think, because this is our opening cast, to me, I think will be endless. And I know that that is something that is very important to our creative team. That's actually something that I like spoke with my reps before even signing my contract. When we were negotiating, I was like, it is very important to me that anyone in the building who is understudying me is of Asian descent. I was like, I
hmm
will not be signing this contract um
yeah,
if that is not set in stone. And thankfully, when my team, brought that to them, our team, our creative team and producers and management had already decided that,
yeah,
which was such a relief to me, because I was like, wow, like, we are being taken care of by people who very much understand the importance of that. Um, and that should just be the bare freaking minimum. It should
yes.
be the bare minimum.
I
But
agree.
that was such a relief to me that I
Mhm.
that they had already thought about that. That was not something that we had to like argue about. That was not something that was going to make me not do this show. And like, having that understanding, um and knowing that we, you know, capital W, as people of color, were being so taken care of by these people already. So it's a remarkable place to work, and I feel very grateful, to not just be, like a check mark of like,
Yeah,
okay, we've cast our one Asian person, we've cast our one Black person, we're good. No one's gonna argue about our cast list when it gets announced. You know what I mean? It just, it's
mhm.
remarkable. It really is. And that was my experience on Merrily too. We were an incredibly, incredibly diverse cast, not just with, skin color, but also body types. And it was great. It was great. And I
Mhm.
feel very lucky that my two like professional shows in New York City um, were created with such care in terms of casting. So it's
Yeah.
great. Yeah. I've
Yeah,
been
and I
very
was
spoiled, which I shouldn't be spoiled. You know what I mean?
but you deserve to be. And I think it's Spelling Bee is really, it really is that one show on Broadway right now where I'm like, or off Broadway, whatever. But that is like, oh, this is how everything should be. And like,
Yeah.
recently with Just in Time, they just cast Isa Briones as Connie
Oh my
Francis.
gosh.
Freaked out about because I had kind of cut
Oh,
that
I'm
out of my
so
brain of possibility of like, oh, I would never be able to play either Connie or Sandra or whatever.
Bro, I was
Real people.
literally just having this conversation because so I'm half Filipino and I'm
Uh-huh.
Spanish and I'm Italian. And obviously Connie Francis is Italian, but I look Asian. So there
Yeah,
is a part of me before Issa, before it was announced that she was cast, I was like, I would love to play Connie Francis. I'm Italian, why can't I? But
yeah.
because I inhabit an Asian looking body, that people won't understand or accept that I also do come from Italian heritage. So having her cast as that, I had a very, very similar experience as you of being like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that could be a possibility. Especially because, it's hard when you are playing real people. And I think
Yes,
like that's kind of, like that's a very interesting line. So like I was very surprised when I saw that casting announcement. I was like,
me
all right,
too.
work. You know what I mean? Because again, Connie Francis in that show, it has nothing to do with her being white. There's a difference, right? And like,
Yeah.
and we all know that, and I shouldn't have to say this, but again, because people are gonna obviously take everything out of context. Like, I'm not saying that, you know, black shows shouldn't be cast black. I'm not saying that Asian shows shouldn't be cast Asian. You know what I mean? But in these
Yes.
moments where there is flexibility, when it's non-specific, we should be able to be there.
Hmm.
And yeah, so that was a really, really, really cool casting announcement that I was like absolutely astounded by when I saw that. It's like,
Me
that is
too.
awesome. That
I
is
freaked out.
awesome.
Because I mean, I've
Because
seen that show
yeah,
twice with Groff and everyone, and like, it's such a good show. And I was like, oh, there's not much of a place for me unless I were like a siren or something. But to see that, I
yeah,
was like, oh my God, the possibilities are endless if someone like Connie
yeah.
Francis is inhabited by, someone who's Asian.
Yeah, well, and I think it's, it is a case by case basis because again, like that story, the just in time story, has nothing to do with the color of those real people's skins, right?
Yeah. Just
Like
make
the
a
whole
couple jokes
concept
about
of
the
that
Italian.
show was that exactly, like the whole concept of the show is that Jonathan had a connection to Bobby Darin and wanted to make this musical, and it's about
Hmm.
honoring Bobby's life, obviously, and you can take whatever you want from the themes that they speak about and whatever message you're trying to get from that show. But the conceit of the show is that Jonathan is feels as if he is like mirroring Bobby's life, and that he the only way that he feels so himself is to be on a stage, which is what Bobby felt, and that is the show. And I think that is an amazing casting choice, and it makes me so excited. And yeah, I'm like so grateful to that team for thinking outside of the box, and not constraining us into boxes. And yeah, it was an amazing day to see that casting
Yeah.
announcement.
And I know like a couple people behind the scenes are also Asian as well. So it's like, yay.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So
great.
like Renee as assistant director and everything, I was like, yes, we have at least some representation in some way, which
Yeah.
is, always great. But yeah, like going back to the bee, which is what we're here to talk about. I just, I know we should not say thank you anymore, but it's just great to see a show leading the charge, especially since the show is so much about individuality and about being unique people. And it's
Hmm.
about the people who don't always fit in, and who doesn't fit in more than people of color, at least in America.
Yeah.
And so it just makes perfect sense to me for all of this to be happening. So I'm just very very happy. Not, I won't say
Yeah.
thankful, but I will say happy.
Yeah.
And for you, just before we wrap up, like going through, everything you've gone through, going through school, going through being in a Broadway show, Broadway revival, off-Broadway show, revival, like what would you say to someone who, is trying to pursue performing, whether they be Asian American or just anybody? What would your advice be?
Oh man.
It's a tough one, I
I
know.
mean, there is so much. And I think like I made a video about this too. Like advice is such an interesting thing because not all advice is for everyone. And there is advice that you may receive now that's not going to make any sense to you, but it may make sense in 5 years. It may make sense tomorrow. And I think really our job as theater professionals and then also as individuals who receive advice is to learn how to discern it, um, and understand them and know that not every piece of advice is for you. But I
Mhm.
think, oh, hmm,
Or maybe just something that helped you and could possibly help someone if it's for them.
yeah. I mean, there literally is so much. There is so much because I have really I feel like I have struck gold with so many amazing people and mentors in my life that have really championed me in times that I stopped championing myself. But I think maybe the thing that I am trying to understand right now is so much of what we do has to do with a booking, right? Like getting the job.
Yeah.
so much of so much of having those markers of like, am I doing it, has to do with being able to post on Instagram and being like, here's my next gig. And I think the thing that I have been reminded of this past week is just because a booking doesn't go your way does not mean that you have nothing to show for it. Meaning,
Mm.
there's like the interpersonal relationships of this business is beyond me, is beyond my ability to have an understanding, but it's also being able to trust those interpersonal relationships. Meaning, and this is advice that I got right when I graduated college, when I started to audition, is sometimes it's more important to book the room than it is to book the job. Because
Mhm.
when you're first starting out and you're auditioning and you're making these first impressions, a lot of it has to do with introducing yourself to people and making fans of these casting directors who your agents had to push you to be seen because they don't know who you
Mhm.
are. They don't know what you have to offer. And eventually you want to get to that point where your agents no longer have to push for you and you're being called in for things because you have made good impressions, you have done the good work, you have worked in spaces where people are now thinking of you and thinking where you can fit into the puzzle. So just because I'm not booking the job doesn't mean that that next job isn't on its way. And I think the most important thing for me is that, yes, I have so many dreams and I have so many, and I'm a very ambitious person. And when things don't go my way, I think it's so easy to like go to doomsday land, which I have been doing recently, and being like, why didn't I get that job? Why am I not in that room? Why did I not get that offer? And I think it's a long game, and I think it's easy to write yourself off, and I think it's easy to forget the things that you have done. It's easy to forget the impressions you have made. Um, but there are markers that aren't bookings, meaning getting called in for something is a marker because there are
Mhm.
thousands of people who are being submitted who do not receive appointments. That's a marker. Getting the opportunity to go into a room, do good work, and then getting a call back is another marker. And then getting a work
Yeah.
session is another marker. And then being in final callbacks when it's you and a small group of people is another marker. And just because you didn't book that job does not mean that you didn't do good enough work. It just means that you weren't the right puzzle piece. And
Yeah.
and that is out of my control. And I think that is one of the most important things to me is there are a very small, finite group of things that I have control over when I audition for something. How well do I know
Mm-hmm.
this material? Do I know it well enough that when they give me an adjustment, am I going to be able to fully understand and take that adjustment and show them what they want to see? Do I have my book ready in case they'd want me to sing something even though I'm already singing and acting from the show? Did I appropriately dress for this audition so that sometimes they don't have the imagination, even though that is the name of our game. They don't have the imagination to imagine an Asian woman as this character. So do I need to show them that I can be this character? Absolutely. Those are the things that I
Yeah.
can control. And the things that are out of my control is what I look like, how tall I am, whether or not my voice timbre is how they hear this score, whether or not my version of this character is the version that they want. If I'm the vessel that they want to bring this character to life, those are things that are out of my control. And the more you like go to doomsday about those things that you can not control is the worse off you're going to be. So I think
Yeah.
it's like having a bigger understanding of the markers that are showing you that you are indeed doing the right things and are on the right path. And it truly is about the perfect place, the perfect time, the people you know, and being you is the thing that is
Mm-hmm.
going to get that booking, which will then be the ultimate marker to show that you are doing the right thing. If that makes
Yeah.
sense. Gosh, I hope
Well,
that sentiment makes sense. But
no,
that
it
is
makes so
something
much
that, yeah, but that is something that I have, I have been very doomsday about recently, and thankfully I had a conversation with my team this past week about it, and it's really helped me um like lock back in and like bring myself back down to reality. Um
Yeah.
in that I am here, I am doing the thing that I have set out to do. Finally playing a principal in New York City is the next step on the ladder. And then there will be
Yeah.
another step on that ladder, and there'll be another step on that ladder. But this, I may not have had the opportunity to jump from 0 to 100 in my career so far, but that does not mean that I have not taken the appropriate steps to get to the place where I believe myself to be able to get to, if that makes sense.
Definitely. No, it makes
Yeah.
so much sense. I think, again, as someone who is right at the beginning of all of this, I'm in
Yeah.
my junior year, so I still have one more year to go. But, thinking about graduation and going to New York and all the craziness that comes with that, it's
Yeah.
good to have reminders like that of like, oh, I made my professional debut, or I did this, or I did this, and like taking those as wins and not minimizing them. I think is always a good thing, even when you do get to the point of being on Broadway or off Broadway. It's like just doing things for yourself. I think is always important. You always want to do things for yourself.
Yeah.
So it's for you and not just for other people. And I think that's something with Marcy too. Is like for her, she doesn't know why she's doing the things she's doing. So then her
Hmm.
big decision of defying expectations is something that's finally for herself. Um,
Yeah.
Look at that little circle back. But it is true of just, you know, taking everything as it comes and just being appreciative of where we are. And also me asking you to ask about advice reminded me of that line in Merrily of like the
Oh
worst
yeah, the
vice
worst
is
vice in the world is advice. Yeah.
I was like, oh, I forgot about that line. But it is really just, thinking also with Merrily, it's like distilling it back to like that pure, maybe 19, 20 year version of yourself too, of like thinking of their dreams and stuff like that. And,
Yeah.
you know, just always reminding of like being happy with where you are, I think is something I've been
Yeah.
really trying to do in the past year or so of just seeing the movie, of course, helped me with that as well, which was
Yeah,
great.
absolutely.
Such
Absolutely.
a great gift. But Leanna, before we wrap up, is there anything else you would like to say to the people? I guess.
No,
Anything
I mean, yeah, thank you so much for talking with me today. This has been so wonderful. Obviously, if you guys find yourselves in New York City, come see Spelling Bee. We're there until September 6th, I believe. We just got extended not too long ago. But yeah, come see us. It's a really good time, and I feel very lucky to be doing a show that is bringing people joy. Um, in a time of great despair is what it feels like. So
Yeah.
it's just awesome. It's awesome to get to be bringing people joy and to hear laughter and see smiles in the audience, and to, like, escapism is so real, and I think it's very important. And that is the beauty of live theater and art, is that you are allowed to be happy and you are allowed to experience joy even when things are scary in our world. And I think, like, I feel very lucky to be able to bring people joy in our current climate. So
Yeah. Well, thank you to everyone who will be listening. Make sure to follow Leanna at Leana Rae on Instagram, and also your TikTok, which is so much fun. You go live. I think was it before every single show? Because I was like,
no, like,
that's
literally
amazing.
before every single show, I just hang out. I get to theater so early and I'm so lonely, so I just go live on TikTok and, like, hang out. But it's fun. It brings me so much joy. It brings me so much joy.
Yeah.
So
No, when I do catch it, I'm like, oh my gosh, look at the wig, all the things, all the people
yeah,
hanging out. It's a lot of fun. So,
I know. It's
just make
actually so
sure.
funny. Me going on live, so many people are like, it's like hilarious, the amount of people in our industry who have like literally told me, "Oh, you're just like always live." It's like, yeah, well, I'm always at the theater. I don't know what else to tell you. Oh my god, it is so funny, and it's, like, kind of embarrassing, but, like, I don't really care.
I wouldn't. It is not embarrassing. I think it's so much fun. If I were in a show, I feel like if I were in a longer running show, it would totally get to that for me too. Just like, hey, let's talk, let's chat. Why
Let's just
not?
hang. Let's, like, talk about nothing.
Or just feel like watch me put my wig on, guys. Like watch me
Right,
do my
right. Exactly.
makeup.
Yeah.
Yeah, Leanna, thank you so much for being on the pod. Also, one more thing was I have this little bee that I made out of felt. A friend gave this.
I love him. He's so cute.
I tried my best to make him as adorable as I could,
Oh
but
my god, it's so cute. It looks like our Bartholomew. That's what we named our
is
bee,
that?
Bartholomew. Yeah, there's a longer,
Oh,
more inappropriate name, but I won't say it out loud. But it's Bartholomew.
that's for you guys. That's for you guys. But yeah, thank you so much for being on the pod, and to everyone listening, I hope you have a great day. Thank you so much for
Thank you so much
listening.
for having me, Ashley. Thank you.
You've been listening to Broadway Corner with Ashley Haw. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you next time.